We're also talking security matters. Mr. Agiole Abe joins us now. He's a former commissioner of police in Kaduna State. He's been in several capacities while he was in service. In fact, good morning and thank you for joining us today again on the program. Well,
thank you, Chamberlain, for having me here.
Yeah, talking about security, in fact, you did also serve in Owerri, as a matter of fact. Now that these attacks happened, several of them, 7, last count, there are questions as to how could these things keep happening? Because someone just sitting and watching will just leave with that impression that, oh dear, the police, if they don't have capacity to defend themselves, how then can they protect the people? Give us an understanding. How could these kind of things happen, especially when we hear that the police get intelligence before these kind of attacks happen?
Chamberlain, thank you. I think it's high time we stop the blame game and face the realities on ground. The issue of intelligence, I think there is complete collapse of intelligence. The police is not just the organ that provides this information. We have other agencies. There's a complete failure on the part of every of these agencies concerned in this issue. And the question is, the attack in Imo will look at exactly activities of certain groups of people that are responsible for these actions. If you listen to the former IG, he said this attack was done by IPOB and MASOB. And if that were so, that means we are dealing with a well-organized group of people who intend to instill fear into the populace. And I think that are activities associated with terrorists. And unfortunately, the police at this material time, we must face the realities. The police is ill-prepared and ill-equipped to deal with situations like this. Over the years, the police have been lacking behind in the training and equipping of its members. And honestly, these are fallout of this neglect. Because in the first place,
before we go a little further, let me just speak about some of the things you just mentioned. When you say they are ill-equipped to deal with some of these issues, there are stages to dealing with these kind of issues. So are they ill-equipped across board to the extent that they can't even, because if they say there were people who were surveilling those formations, so they couldn't detect those who were surveilling people, they said they were even physically present carrying out those surveillance. So they can't see that one, and then with intelligence, nothing whatsoever can be done. That's hard to believe.
Chamberlain, the situation is such that I am one person that maybe I'm excited that a new Inspector General of Police is coming in, and honestly, with my knowledge of the IG, I think it will define the destination in which the police is going to. Because over the years, policing is not just human being. Policing has to do with the capacity of the human beings to carry out their responsibilities. And Chamberlain, without mixing words, I think we are lacking behind, and it's high time the police authority face these realities and let the government know that at this stage we have shortcomings.
So what is he going to do that will suddenly transform the force? Because there are several complaints the what do they call it again? The postings, favoritism that they say exists with the police postings, or is it the ill-trained police officers who perhaps while you're driving on the street, those on the first line there, their conduct? What aspect, what is he going to do that will transform the police as you referenced?
The new Inspector General of Police is well-focused, disciplined, and an honest officer. And I believe if he assembles the right team, and we're going to see a little shift, but it's not going to be immediate and automatic, because over the years, we've not been able to get our men well prepared for situations like this. And he is meeting a very disoriented and disgruntled serviceman. He has a task to be able to bring back the confidence into this man. And also, these issues also is not solely on the table of the police force. The system did not provide us or the police officers oxygen to breathe properly. What I mean is, if you want to have an effective and efficient police force, you need to work towards it. You don't go to the market and see an original product and pay for a second-handed one and expect it to function well. It doesn't work that way. The police have been left for a long time. Please, Chamberlain, we are now in a system where everything is globalized. If you go to the training institutions, are these institutions actually prepared to train police officers? When we send in recruits, what kind of training are we giving to them? And then when we come, each time we speak and we talk about our numbers, people begin to say, so the numbers count. Numbers count. If you go to these police stations they are attacking, these stations are not built in isolated areas. They are built within the communities. These criminals have enough time to come in, see that we are not sufficient on ground, and look at the numbers they come with. It's easy to overpower these men. The issue of the headquarters, for instance, the timing and the equipment taken there, honestly, surprise attack.
Your body language suggests that as things stand now, another police formation can be attacked and there'll be nothing they can do about it.
That is why we have a new Inspector General of Police who needs to send this message to all the commands, because they have to get themselves prepared, because this attack might not stop. But our capacity to prevent it from happening is the most important thing. But it won't stop, because if you look at the sequence in the attack, they've already planned these attacks and they're carrying it the way they plan it. So honestly, it's not going to stop.
Isn't there another component here? Because when you say those formations are located within communities, now we've heard security agencies at different level talk consistently asking the people to volunteer information, and that's not happening as they should or as they would like to see, such that they can foil and prevent some of this crime from happening. And that's where the trust quotient comes in between the people and the police. Is the police doing anything whatsoever to see how they could bridge that gap?
From all indications, the issue of community policing is there, but practicability of it is the problem. And then secondly, our police force must be trained and prepared to integrate with the system and this community properly. All these things does not start from the police stations. All these things ought to take place from the scratch. But you find out that when we have institutions that are not quite prepared to train officers, honestly, the product you have from them cannot give you what you want. That is just the honest truth.
Right.
Like I said, Chamberlain, like I said, honestly speaking, I do not want to speak or stand for IGP Alkali Baba, honestly, but I believe that he can change the trend.
Well, we definitely hope so as well. Well, there have been a few attacks right after he became the acting IGP, so we do hope that that trend stops. But, when you talk about the police being ill-equipped, ill-prepared, abandoned, short of saying that, we heard the former commissioner of police in FCT saying the same thing, that the police has not been well-funded over time. You don't have the right ammunition, the right weapons, the right equipment, maybe not in tune with technology and all that. And to be honest with you, this is something I've heard for decades, for as long as I can remember, the same talk about the police not being funded as well. And I wonder, because the police is represented at almost all levels, almost everywhere. At the presidency, you have the police in the Federal Executive Council in some sense. The IGP attends meetings with the president. You have the police represented at the National Assembly. You have police in the civil service. Your men, or at least men of the Nigeria Police Force, are everywhere. So it's not as though they're outside of the system such that they're being, sidelined or put aside. They are in the system. So how is it that a force that is so well represented in the system at all levels is still not as funded as it ought to be?
That is the issue, and that's that is what we can't explain. But honestly speaking, don't forget, I just existed from the force few years ago, about 2 years back, and it's really, really pathetic when you see situations of police officers, what they operate with, and you begin to wonder whether we are actually working towards securing this society. But it's not the fault of officers. We have very, very intelligent, hardworking officers, but you can't work with nothing. So I think time has come that the government should sit down and face the reality that the police force we have, are they actually prepared to maintain law and order? Because the attacks is just in one part of the state, Imo State. We don't want and we don't pray for it to spread. When it does, it's going to be a serious issue.
When we asked, why these attacks keep happening, you have referenced the fact that, like you said, the men are ill-equipped, ill-prepared, and the rest. And this boils down to just how well-funded, how much attention is being paid to the police, which is why I ask, how is it possible to still have that situation when the police is well represented? So the question is, does that call to question the effectiveness of those who represent the police at those levels? Because you expect that these issues should have been tabled squarely before who matters at the presidency level, at the National Assembly, in the civil service, as little as having an orderly telling a principal office, a principal person in the government saying, these are the issues we have. So when it's time to bring it up, please, we need you to bring up these issues to ensure that the police is well funded. So does that call to question the kind of representation the police has at those levels?
I think I had the privilege of accompanying one of the former IGs to the National Assembly. I think time has come for the key players to face this reality. Look, police is not properly funded. That is the truth. Police is not properly funded. And if they are not funded, honestly speaking, we are going to have some of these problems coming up until such a time that police is well prepared and focused. to fight crime is going to be very difficult, very, very difficult. In the first place, we are talking about, we have about 350,000 police officers, and I can tell you that we don't have more than 200,000 officers who are actively in crime prevention. Don't forget, among these numbers, we have drivers, we have carpenters, we have mechanics. So you find out the number is so much compressed that how do you distribute them to commands? Maybe in Imo State, we shouldn't have more than 4,000 police officers. So you find out that the problem is.
I understand. I understand the problem. I mean, we see the problem. We know the problem. It's staring at us in the face. I would say it's probably visible to the blind as well. We know the problem, underfunding. But what I don't seem to understand is why the police remains underfunded successively. IGPs have been changed. They have made promises. Commissioners of police have been changed time and again. They have made promises. These are people that are close to power. I mean, they are at the source. Pretty much. So I still don't understand why we have to keep saying the police is underfunded when the police is right there in the system, close to the money in quote. So that's what I don't understand.
Police is not in the system at all. The police is outside the system because the police does not take part in budgeting. The police does not take part in funds that are going to be released to them. So you find out that we are there, we present what we want, and if you don't have or you don't get what you want, you will do virtually not too much. See, we don't need to tell the government now that we do not have the police do not have vehicles. We don't need to tell government that the police is still operating analog. We don't need to tell the government that some police stations are still living in rented police stations. If you look at some of these stations attacked, they are not even standard police stations. And these are divisions. So you find out that the problem is just too much for the police force.
I'd like you to take a listen to this comment by a former DSS operative.
3 times the Nigeria police was informed by the DSS that this is going to happen because, of course, some suspects that are being geolocated around the area were found surveilling the prisons and the police headquarters. But you know, in a lackadaisical way, when the intelligence will come, they throw it by the side, and then, of course, when something happens, then everybody runs around. Number one, of course, the prison that the correctional center is not well situated. It has its own problems. They have observed these people that have been surveilling the prison and then, of course, the police headquarters. Now, one thing about this, the location is even very bad because for a correctional facility, the static security is very, very poor. All security reports are shared to, first of all, to the governor in a state. Then it is shared to other sister agencies like the police, the military. If there is a military installations there, all of them got this particular report. So the governor is very much aware.
Mr. Gelo, do you want to respond to that, please?
It's quite unfortunate that we try to do the blame game. And interestingly, the man speaking is a retired DSS officer and is so categorical about the fact he is presenting. And I think the IG will have to look into that. But the DSS, if it is true, too, that they had an information regarding this incident, and there's nothing stopping them, too, from picking up the arrowheads in this thing before it actually happened, because they have sting operations. So issue of I giving you information does not even arise, because this is a high-profile crime that the actors are going to blow off a police headquarters. And I don't think and I don't believe that the Commissioner of Police and the governor, because they have the same security meeting where these issues are discussed, and suddenly the issue that the police has this information and they didn't act upon it, that is true, it is quite unfortunate, but I don't want to believe it.
But are you saying then, Mr. Agiole, just a second, are you saying that it is possible for such a high-profile crime, as you said, happens in the state and the police is absolutely unaware?
That is where I started to say there is a kind of collapse in our intelligence gathering, not just on behalf from the police, the DSS, and all other agencies responsible for sourcing intelligence reports. But as a matter of fact, the incident is quite unfortunate, and they are investigating, and let's look at wait for the outcome of the investigation. But the incident is quite unfortunate.
You were Commissioner of Police.
Exactly, yeah. Issue that I am raising.
Just a second. While you were Commissioner of Police, were you not receiving intelligence from DSS about issues or cases that were about to happen?
While I was Commissioner of Police, we have a Security Council meeting where the DSS is there, the brigade commander is there, the garrison commander is there, the governor is there, and we sit. And then sometimes we get intelligence report from the DSS.
Okay, so that happens clearly. But now there are calls to allow governors or decentralize the police, if I could use that word. I think that's what some governors were quoted to have said the other day. Do you think that if that were to happen, the police would get a lot more verve, there might be a lot more effectiveness in policing across the country?
I think maybe because it's, when people are frustrated, they come up with a lot of issues. The federal government is finding it quite difficult to fund the police force. There are some states that have the capacity to do so, and there are some states, don't forget, it's difficult to pay teachers, it's difficult to pay local government employees, it's difficult to do so many things. And the police, it's not just going to be payment of police salary, you're going to equip them with arms, you're going to buy logistics and the rest. So the state governors should actually rethink this issue of decentralization for the time being. Let's solve the problem, let's kind of have a balanced system, then some of this will naturally come up. In the first place,
solving the problem. But the governors are saying themselves, some of them are saying, we can do this. Aren't we the ones that buy vehicles to the police? Aren't we the ones that provide fuel dump to the police? Aren't we the one that build or rehabilitate some barracks for the police? So if we can do all of those things and have several other either traffic control units, vigilante units, several other units that we fund, why can't they be in charge of police in their states?
The problem with due respect to the governors, maybe they want total control. Because in command, I have not seen a situation where there is an emergency, there is a situation to deal with, and the governor is aware and passes such information to the police, and it was not carried out. At all, there is none. There's no way the governor of Imo State would have said, look, CP Imo, there is going to be a situation at so time. And the CP said, no, sir, I'm not doing.
As a commissioner of police, you don't have to refer to the IGP when these issues arise. You just act on it.
Issues like this?
Yes.
Like in Imo?
Yes, I'm saying when a governor gives an order, or at least gives you a tip-off, are you saying you don't have to refer to the IGP, you just take the action based on the governor's order?
Look, when the governor gives you an information, he's already putting you on notice. And so by the time you are getting clearance from IG, you already said to operate.
Okay,
but
so
you did not.
Could you tell us, guys, pointedly now, if the governor gives you or gives a commissioner of police some information, perhaps a directive, and then the IGP says, no, don't do that, whose order will the CP obey?
See, I don't think the IG...
It's a straightforward question, Mr. Agiole.
So it depends. There are some questions that you can see, because if the governor said, look, Abbey, I want you to arrest the chairman for so party for so reason. It's different from, look, Abbey, there are talks trying to attack people at so location.
Are you then saying, Mr. Abbey, are you saying that there are cases where a commissioner of police can disregard the information or the order from the IG and obey the governor?
See, look, we must be certain and specific about some of these issues. The IG is a human being. The IG is there because of security. And honestly speaking, I don't think there is any issue regarding security that the IG will ask that the CP should disregard, unless it has nothing to do with the state.
All right, Mr. Abbey, we do thank you for your perspectives this morning. Mr. Agiole Abbey, former Commissioner of Police in Kaduna State. Thank you for talking to us.
Thank you, Mr. Tambalin. Have a wonderful day.